Regardless of your fitness goals, macronutrients are worth learning about. There are 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to track them using an app called MyFitnessPal. And keep in mind that macronutrients make up the calories contained in our foods, so by tracking macronutrients, we're inherently tracking calories as well. In order to track macronutrients effectively, you're going to need 2 things. Number 1 is going to be a digital food scale, and number 2 is going to be MyFitnessPal. Okay, so step 1 would be to grab your mobile device, go into the App Store, download the free app MyFitnessPal. Once you get into the app, you're going to create a free account and enter in all the required fields that they ask for. And please ignore any of the recommendations they set, as you should have your own kind of macronutrient targets figured out either from your coach or from an external source, or ones that you calculated on your own. Okay, so now that we have our app all set up, we are ready to start inputting foods. So in this section of the video, we're going to go over the 3 most common types of foods that you will be inputting when tracking macronutrients, and the exact process that we need to do in order to make sure that our inputs are accurate. So number 1, the first type would be anything that has a scannable label on it, okay? Number 2, the second type would be something, for example, like the sweet potato, which is not scannable. And the third type that we're going to go over is something that was prepared by an outside source. So either when you're eating out at a restaurant, or if a family member cooked it, or anything that was not in your control and you didn't measure each of the portions involved. Okay, so the first type of food option we're going to talk about is one that you can scan. So one that has a scanning label at the bottom. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into the app. You're going to press Add Food. Then you're going to click the scanning button. You're going to scan the bottom where you see the barcode. Okay. You're going to verify that it reflects the nutrition facts listed on the box or the package. You're going to adjust the number of servings based on how much you want to eat. So easiest thing to do, if possible, is to just choose the 1 gram option and then type in exactly how many grams you would like to eat. So for example, if I wanted 30 grams of this rice cereal, I would choose 1 gram and then type in 30, and that would give me 30 grams. And always remember that whatever amount is given always represents the current state of the food. So this is more important for things like rice or meats, where the scanned label represents the uncooked portion. Okay? Just an FYI. Okay, so the second most common type of food that you'll likely be eating would be something that doesn't have a scannable label on it. So example, like the sweet potato or apple or something like that. Of course, I would peel this before weighing it, as I won't be eating the skin. So again, you're only weighing out or measuring out the edible portion of your foods. So you have 2 options with foods that are not scannable. So number 1 would be to search an online database. Okay, so go online, type in the type of food, and you'll see a lot of different nutrition databases on there. And then from there, you'll create a custom food that you can then use as the input for that food anytime you eat it. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we're adding food. You make a custom food. Here, you only need to input the calories, macronutrients, and fiber. That will save a lot of time. Of course, you can put the other info if you really want to as well. And boom, now you have that input to use every single time you eat that food. If you are one of my clients, you'll notice that I have actually created in your Google Docs under the sample day of eating a full nutrition database for you, and also instruction on how to create your own food in MyFitnessPal as well. So you can reference that to make sure that you choose the correct one. Your second option is to search MyFitnessPal. you'll notice there are lots of options that come up. So if we go ahead and search sweet potato raw, you'll see we get a lot of options for sweet potato. So the issue is that the accuracy is not always 100% because these are inputs that were created by different users. So if it has a green check mark, this will increase the likelihood that the input is correct, okay? But secondarily, what you can do is compare multiple options and try to find what the consistency is between them, and use your nutritional knowledge to select one that you think is appropriate, okay? So that is how you would input a food that is not scannable. Okay, so the third most common type of food that you'll have to track would be something that is prepared by someone else. Okay, so either that's an outside source or a home cooked meal like this one. And you know, it's difficult because you can't measure out each individual portion, but we still want to make sure that we do remain on track for that day. So even though it's not optimal, you know, based on lifestyle, things like this do happen, and we have to have some sort of level of flexibility within our nutrition. Okay? So if it's a well-known source, so for example from a franchise or a chain restaurant, a lot of times they will have their nutrition facts on their website. Okay? So for example, Subway is a great choice because they're very consistent with their serving sizes. So if you go onto the Subway website, you can choose exactly which sub you want to eat, and then input that into MyFitnessPal. Okay. The second would be to search the MyFitnessPal database, again, for the type of sub you're eating or the type of food from another restaurant. And then again, use your nutritional knowledge and the other inputs and comparing them to choose which option you think is most appropriate. All right. The second type would be if it's not a well-known source, so not a chain or anything like that, or homemade. Okay, so let's say you go over to a family member's house and they serve you a plate of food. So how do you track that? Well, you look at the food and you try to estimate the quantity of each individual component. Okay, so obviously this is a lot easier for foods that are separated out, which is why I usually recommend when clients do eat out that they choose separated food sources. So for example, you have your meat serving, you have your starch serving, and then maybe a vegetable serving, versus a dish where it's all mixed together and there's a bunch of sauces and you have no clue what exactly is in your meal, right? So that is the strategy to use when there's not a well-known source. And even if it's not accurate, it still keeps you in the habit of tracking. And it still makes sure that we're somewhat within the range of our targets for that day. And it's definitely better than not tracking at all, right? Another cool thing you can do with MyFitnessPal is as you get better and better at estimating macronutrients, which comes with experience, you can then simply input the individual macros for a meal. So let's say somebody handed me a plate of food. I could go in MyFitnessPal, so let's do that right now. If I search protein, for example, I can input how many grams of protein I think are in that meal. I can do the same thing for carbs, selecting how many grams of carbs I think. And then also I can do the same thing for fats. So that's another option as you get more experience. Instead of selecting the individual food items and trying to input them, you can just look at the whole meal and say, okay, I think this is X amount of protein, X amount of carbs, and X amount of fat. I hope this video was able to simply and effectively show you exactly how to measure your food intake using MyFitnessPal. And if you do have any comments, questions, or concerns, please leave them in the comments and I would be happy to help. Thanks.